Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Helen Keller.
You're listening to Parenting in the Rain podcast, episode 40.
Welcome to Parenting in the Rain Insights from the Experts podcast, providing parents all around the world with valuable knowledge to help with the biggies of family life. Here's your host, a registered play therapist, education specialist, parent coach, and my mom, Jackie Flynn.
Hi there, Jackie Flynn here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Parenting in the Rain podcast. Well, today's episode I'm really excited about. It's something that I talk a lot about to the parents that I work with. And as an education specialist, I really feel really competent and confident in this area. And it is titled A Parent's Guide to Having a Productive and Helpful Meeting at School. So there are many different types of meetings at school. The most common is the parent-teacher conference, and those can occur for many different reasons, whether it's parent-requested or regularly scheduled or teacher-requested, or both. Also, there's IEP meetings to really either renew services or see if someone qualifies for specialized services, such as help academic support in certain areas, or speech language services, or occupational therapy, those types of things. And also there's 504 meetings, and those meetings really are held to see if a child is eligible for different accommodations in the classroom, and there can be related services there as well. There's also meetings that are just to gather information. There can be small meetings, large meetings, so many different types of meetings. And as a school counselor, I really had my share of meetings. So I'm excited to share this with you guys because I know meetings can be somewhat intimidating sometimes. It can really kind of provoke some anxiety. So I want to give you some of my tips. And I do want to have the big disclaimer as I came from a school setting, but also I've been to meetings on the parent end as well as had friends and clients and different people in my life that shared their perspective as well. So really each school has its own culture, and each district or school certainly has its own protocol, policies and procedures that they follow, really that list of things that are, okay, this is what you do when, and it can vary from school to school, and certainly the culture can vary from school to school. And when I say culture, I mean that feeling of, okay, this is how we do things here, feeling what's acceptable, what's not. Regardless of the type of the meeting that you're attending at school or wherever you're attending it at, there's some basic elements in place that can make a huge difference between a productive and helpful meeting to one that's not. So like I said, I worked for years as a teacher and as a school counselor. I absolutely loved it. My experience was in a really good school. I did some substitute teaching in various schools, so I've been definitely to other schools, but the bulk of my experience was in a charter school, and it is an excellent school. My children go there. So this is where I gained a lot of my knowledge from, in addition to what I learned in my training in my graduate program to be an education specialist. So I'm giving you my opinions from my limited viewpoint. So just like with any information, take what you need of this information and just go ahead and leave the rest. You may not agree with what I'm saying in some spaces, and that's okay. My intent is to provide you some tips that may help you, not to push my opinions on you. So sometimes meetings at the school can involve some information and decisions that can get really heavy in nature, especially since they are involving our children. It can bring up some big emotions. So I'm going to start off with some tips. And if you would like a list of these tips, I have a free download at this episode 40. On parentingintherain.com. So go ahead and just check that out if you're interested. So the first tip is be on time. I cannot overstate the importance of this. This starts the meeting off with just respect. It's so important to really recognize that everybody's time is important to them, as well as it really starts that tone of respect and that, hey, this is something that I really, really am setting as a priority right now. So make sure that you show up on time. Sometimes it's best to show up a little bit early and sit in the front office or the lobby, ever how your school is set up. But it also allows for that time that has been allotted to focus on your child to really be used for that purpose. Because a lot of people, in some cases just a couple, they've carved out that time out of their schedule, as well hopefully you have, to have that time focused just on helping your kid. So if you cut it short by being late, and you're really missing out on that. And that tardiness, that last minute reschedule can really set a tone of this isn't a priority to me from the start. But you know what? Things do happen. I've been late to meetings myself. So if you are late or you need to reschedule, always apologize and really try your best to not let it happen again. But things do happen, and give yourself permission to be human on that as well. So the next step, or the next tip rather, err on the side of kindness and respect. This is really a common thread throughout life. It's not just with the meetings, but really just in any kind of relational interactions. You can't go wrong with kindness and respect, even if you don't feel like it's reciprocated. The old adage really holds true here. You can get more bees with honey than vinegar. This is so true. But also, that kindness and respect is an energy that you put off. And if you go in there without those things, then you can feel it. They can feel it. And the whole meeting is really kind of set off kilter there. And you may have been in situations where people didn't treat you with kindness and respect, and you felt it. So you really can't go wrong with that kindness and respect. Okay, the next tip is consider yourself to be part of the team. And actually, you are part of the team. You're a huge part of the team. Viewing yourself as part of the team that's working together to help your child can create a different type of energy around the entire situation. So remember that the other people on the team are members of that team that's really in the field of helping children. Remember, though, they are people. They do make mistakes just like we do. Everybody has that level of human error. And they got into the field of helping children. So kind of going back to that basis can really help you kind of put it into perspective. I know things can get emotional sometimes, and sometimes there's definitely some situations that are better than others. But if you view yourself as part of that team, then you're a person that can make change happen, which is super cool. All right, the next tip, brainstorm a list of things that you would like to cover. This is really, really a good idea, because I think sometimes when the meetings start up, the information in our brain just kind of like whoosh, just kind of slips away. And then afterwards we'll be like, man, I forgot to ask this, or I wish I would have asked that. But if you brainstorm a list of the things that you want to have covered, you're going to increase the chances that you get your questions answered and your concerns addressed, because you have it right there in front of you. Even if you don't have to look at it, you have it there. And in some cases, it's helpful to send this list to the person that coordinates the meeting. Say, I'm really looking forward to our meeting coming up on whatever date. Here's a bullet list of some of the things that I would like to address during the meetings. That can be really helpful. And a lot of times, knowing who set up the meeting or who to email it to, you may know already. It may be the school counselor or the school counselor's assistant. But if you don't know, then you could either send it to your teacher, or you can call the front desk and tell them that you would like to communicate some information to someone that is preparing the meeting. And I believe they probably can help you find the person that information would go to. So be sure, though, that your email is written in an information-seeking way that also conveys kindness and respect. It may be helpful to write it out a few days beforehand. That's what I like to do because it gives me time to process it. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, gosh, I want to add this, or maybe I'll word this a little differently. It really gives you time to think it through. When we sleep, our brain does some processing that really allows for that extra added element of higher level thinking or creativity. So that can be applied here as well. The next tip is sometimes parents bring a person to the meeting as part of the team. So I've been in meetings where the child's therapist has been there. I've also been the therapist at the meetings. I've seen where people have brought friends of their family. They've brought a family advocate or a child advocate. I've seen a handful of people that's also like different areas in the child's life. For this to happen, though, it's always, always, always best to let the school know beforehand. It's a respectful thing and gives them a chance to prepare the paperwork that needs to be signed. A letter of authorization that allows the school to discuss private matters about your child in front of the person that you bring, the guest, is something that has to happen. So if you just bring that person and they're not prepared with that paperwork, it may delay the meeting and kind of take away from that time that's allotted. And schools are really serious about that. That's an important element of just that child privacy. The FERPA Act, that's something that the information legally isn't shared unless there's authorization. So give the school a heads up if you're going to bring someone, but sometimes it can totally be helpful to bring someone. Okay, the next tip is always stay professional. This can get a little tough sometimes if there's big emotions, but it is always, always, always helpful to just have that level of professionalism. If you feel yourself getting upset, it may be helpful to excuse yourself, like go to the restroom, and really just kind of engage in some calming or practice skills or techniques before you return, kind of really allowing yourself to get your prefrontal cortex online. I don't know if you've ever seen that little video with Dr. Dan Siegel on the handy model of the brain, but it talks about how, and he really illustrates through using the hand as a model of the brain, how when we're really upset, we don't communicate in a way that is most helpful. So if you do feel yourself kind of, he calls it flipping your lid, but if you feel emotionally flooded, kind of excuse yourself, take a moment to kind of get yourself back online and then come back in. Communicating when we're emotionally flooded can really not only take the focus off of what needs to be focused on, but it can rupture relationships in a way that's really difficult to repair. Remember, always, always, always err on the side of kindness and respect. If everyone's best interest is to establish and maintain a good relationship, then you have a team that functions well. So that's definitely efforts well spent. Another tip is follow-up communication after a meeting. I used to love this when parents or guardians would do this because it really, and sometimes it would be me do it, really kind of communicated that, okay, what happened here, we're really taking that into account and really keeping everybody in the loop. And sometimes there's a meeting that leads to another meeting, lots of meetings in school. Lots. It may be appropriate to send a thank you email to all the participants and include a list of key points that you took away from the meeting. And this will also help you remember that the people that were at the meeting, when you're looking at it down the road, you probably, in some meetings you get a list of conference notes with signatures of who attended the meetings, but not all meetings you do. But also it gives you a record of the things that you felt like were important that came up. And that way, when you're really advocating for your child, you have that list there, helps keep you focused on what is, progress being made and the issues that you're really taking action to address, your concerns. A message that's sent to the school can be something that keeps everybody in the loop. And I know schools, pretty much everybody there is so busy that email seems like the preferred method of communication, because any other way is just kind of hard to coordinate a time where everybody can communicate. All right, so the next tip is keep the focus on your child. It may be tempting to get off track during the meeting, especially if you feel emotionally charged about a certain issue. Some things on the internet can get you so riled up that when you get to the school, you're convinced that these people are like the enemy of your child. So you'll feel yourself all charged up, ready, that I need to fight for my child. But in some cases, that may be true. My experience was definitely a positive one, both as a parent and a school counselor. But in some places, maybe it's not like that. But really notice when you do research and you're researching things that really kind of point out negative like situations that's happened in other areas, it can give you a skewed perspective and really cause you to go into that meeting in a way that doesn't allow that focus to stay on your child. Keeping your focus on your child helps keep the meeting going in a direction that is in the best interest of your child, and also it helps with productivity, so you get all of the information done that was likely to be covered or that was meant to be addressed. The next tip is educate yourself. It can be really helpful to learn about the process, whether it's an IEP, whether it's a 504 meeting or a gifted services meeting or any other area. If you get an invitation for the meeting, a lot of times there's a paper that accompanies that explains your rights and your options as a parent. Some other meetings may not have a formal invitation process or that, but you can look at the school's website and, like I said, get a good feel for their culture, their protocols, and you could always call or email and say, okay, what can I expect at this meeting? And know that when you educate yourself, like if you're going into a 504 meeting or IEP meeting, really look for resources that are a wide array of resources, but resources that are legitimate and are professional. And that way you can get the correct information. As we know, not everything on the internet is always correct, and sometimes it can charge you emotionally in places that really kind of get you worked up about something that may not be the case, or it may be. If this is something that you would like to really kind of delve more into, there are definitely some official sites. If you just kind of look for whatever state you're in, many of the things are national policies as well, or your district school site, you can get a lot of information there too from a trusted resource. All right, so the next one, I just did an episode on trash talking, so I have that phrase on my mind, but really it could be poor mouthing, bad mouthing. I'm really just talking down about somebody while they're not there, but don't trash talk in front of your child. Sometimes meetings are held as a response to a parent complaint. And it's not helpful at all to say hurtful, degrading things about your child's teacher or people at the school in front of your child, even if they are true, even if they have an element or if they are fully true. Really talking poorly about that person in front of your child. Remember, they go back to that class, they go back to that school. So you want to really kind of send the message to your child that their best interest is being addressed. You don't have to say anything untrue, but really kind of getting into where you say really like hurtful things to your child about the school or the teacher can send that message of, hey, you're unsafe, or that message of, these people aren't worth trusting. But then they go there. You have to continue to send them back there if you choose to. So you can still convey that you're addressing a situation to a child. It's really important with children, really important with anybody, to be honest and clear. But that doesn't mean you have to give them all the little details, and you can be very respectful in the way that it's delivered. Remember, your child does need to go to the class again, so it's in their best interest for you to handle the concerns directly with the school, not in front of your child. All right, so the next one is something that maybe is a little more challenging. Know who is at the meeting. It may be appropriate to ask who's at the meeting. Often, though, especially where I was at, we would do introductions around the table at the very beginning. So you had the person's name and what role they served for your child. That was kind of standard for us. I think it is. In most meetings that I've been in, there's been that real cordial introductions in the beginning, especially if there's somebody new, like somebody that maybe you haven't seen yet, a speech therapist or occupational therapist or school psychologist. If you don't recognize someone, though, it can be really helpful just to ask. Just to say, excuse me, I am not familiar with who you are. Could you introduce yourself to me? And that can really give you a feel for, as the meeting evolves, what kind of questions can be directed at whom or what information is coming from what perspective. Some meetings are really small, though, just, parent-teacher. And some meetings can get really, really large depending on the services. I've seen teachers, speech therapist, physical therapist, occupational therapist, resource teachers, exceptional education teachers, administration, advocates, school psychologists, staff and specialists, behavior analysts. The list can go on and on of just the people that can show up at these meetings. They can get pretty large because really trying to address all of the needs of a specific child. They really kind of look for everybody on the team that can be helpful. So I love that. It's not that I love the large meetings, but I love how you can bring in people that can really help in a very specific way. So if you haven't done so yet, there is an excellent episode with one of my colleagues, Melissa Braun. She is on the podcast Melissa's Mantras. I don't have the number for this episode in front of me at this time of this recording. I'm kind of looking for it right now through my paperwork. But she really is a person that I admire. And she's an integral part of, you'll hear it in the episode, of school meetings, both on a professional, personal capacity. So she really knows her stuff. And she's a staffing specialist, or at least she was. I don't know if she is any longer. But also I have some links in that episode to some products and some books that I feel like can be helpful as well. Now, if you want the free download for this episode, which is just the tips you can print out as like a quick little reference guide, you can get that at parentingintherain.com. Just click on episode 40 right in the show notes there. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And I really appreciate your support. I appreciate all of your kind words. And I hope you guys have a wonderful fall. If you haven't done so yet and you're an iTunes user, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to the podcast. I'm working on launching a membership site right now for some fellow therapists. So if you're a therapist listening, a child therapist, be on the lookout in future episodes. I'm really excited about this one. It's definitely a lot of work to get going, though. Between the private practice, the podcast, and that, I've been staying pretty busy, especially after that Hurricane Matthew. I think we're back to normal, though. Well, thanks so much for listening, everybody. And until next time, take care.